Let's say you know slightly more about diet than the average person. You realize you need to create a calorie deficit, you realize you need to fix up your diet, and if you don't do that, it's going to be very hard to drop body fat and change yourself physically. Big win, well done you. So you give it a go, you download MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app, and you start trying to track your diet and you start hitting that number that should be your calorie deficit, and maybe it works for a week, or maybe even 2, but then things slow down, the scale stops moving, and you start to think, well, maybe it isn't about calories after all. Maybe that guy on the internet who was talking about keto, maybe it's because I'm eating too many carbs that the progress has stopped, or maybe my hormones are all messed up, or maybe it's some other thing like that. Stop. You're being led astray and into the vortex of diet hopping. Stop right now, bring it back to calories. You're absolutely on the right line, but something has gone wrong along the way, and here I'm going to tell you what that could be. So here's 3 reasons why a calorie deficit is no longer working. Reason number 1 is you're not actually in a calorie deficit at all. This is a fact of life. Everyone underreports how many calories they eat. We all eat more than we think we do. And there's one really interesting study that highlighted this. So what they did in this particular study was they got group of dietitians and a group of non-dietitians and told them this study is about how accurately you can track your diet. And you'd think dietitians in a study being told to be accurate, they would be spot on. Well, no, even they underreported by about 230 calories. With one dietitian even underreporting by as much as 800 calories. And when we compare this to the normal people in the study, again being told this is about how accurately you can track your diet, they underreported by as much as 429 calories on average, with some individuals underreporting by 1,000 calories or more. So as you can imagine, if that is happening in a controlled study, just think how much it's happening in normal life, where you've got stress, where you've got things to worry about more than just your diet. So it's a really good thing to recognize that the likelihood is you're just eating more calories than you think you are, and the only way to solve this is by tracking more accurately and knowing this in the first place. Reason number 2 is that actually you are in one, but you've just got no accurate way of tracking progress, so you've no idea. If your idea of tracking progress is simply doing a couple weigh-ins a week, let's say one a week even, it's very, very easy for you to not be able to see the progress that is happening. It happens very often with clients in my program, and the minimum they weigh in is 3 times a week. Very often we see stalls happening that last weeks on end. Even though tracking is still accurate, even though we know they're in a calorie deficit, sometimes scale weight does not move, and that's just a fact of life. It can be due to water retention, due to so many different reasons, due to stress. The main point you need to understand is that if you are tracking accurately, if your calorie intake is what you think it is, then the scale will drop eventually. However, if that goes on longer than 2 weeks, you probably aren't in a deficit. So make sure you have multiple ways to track progress, not just scale weight, waist measurement as well, photos, and just taking note of how your belt buckle feels and how your clothes fit. The third and final reason your calorie deficit is no longer working is that maybe you're experiencing some metabolic adaptation. Now, this is only going to be relevant for people who have already lost a significant amount of weight. The interesting thing is, say if you've got 2 people exactly the same weight, one has lost 10 kilos to get there, whereas one has maintained that weight for 3 to 6 or longer months. The person who's just lost 10 kilos to get there often will be burning less calories than the person who's always been that weight. Why? Well, you first need to understand what makes up your total daily energy expenditure. The biggest factor is your resting metabolic rate. This is essentially how many calories you burn from just existing, and the more you weigh, the higher this is going to be. The second biggest factor is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. This is all the calories you burn activity that doesn't make up exercise. So just fidgeting, walking around, standing, sitting, anything that's kind of movement. And the factors after that are the thermic effect of food. This is essentially how many calories you burn just from consuming food. And lastly, exercise, which is pretty self-explanatory. All of these things reduce as you lose weight. And this makes sense, right? You just burn less energy from moving around your daily life, from doing the exercise, from just existing, because you are smaller, because you weigh less. But there is something that reduces outside of weight, and this is NEAT. On a subconscious level, your body stops moving around so much. You become less active. You sit around more. You don't want to walk. You will take the elevator rather than the stairs. And this happens on a subconscious level because your body does not want to lose weight. Fat is an energy source, and in a survival situation, that's very important. Obviously, we're not in that in our modern lives. Your hormones will also start to change. You will become hungrier. You'll have less energy. But the biggest factor is your reduction in NEAT, and that means that many people who have lost weight struggle struggle to then lose more because NEAT is bringing their metabolic rate down. They're not burning as many calories as they should. And the only way around this is to take a break from the diet, to take away the deficit and to spend some time at maintenance. So there we have it. A calorie deficit will always work. The problem is either you're just actually not in one due to inaccurate tracking, or B, you are in one, you just don't have an accurate way to show progress, or number 3, you've lost so much weight that at this point it's better just to not be in one at all. So I hope this is useful and best of luck.